Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to an all-new Talkin Movies. As always, I am your host, the real Geno Reynolds, and today we're gonna talk about the movie based on a true story, A Private War. This movie is about war journalist Marie Colvin and about a little over a decade of her life, of her covering different wars and different military skirmishes overseas, and how covering this stuff affected her mentally, and how her voice getting out there brought awareness to the world about what was really going on in different places. Long story short, I really like this movie. Now, of course, based on a true story, that usually means, well, how much did they change from real life? Unlike movies like Bohemian Rhapsody, this movie didn't change a lot that really affected the history of what happened. While I haven't seen if History versus Hollywood had anything on this, they didn't yesterday. I did find a story from Time Magazine that talked about what the movie was true and what wasn't, and the stuff that wasn't was things like her ex-husband and her future lover. They were based on other people, but they kind of, manipulated the story a little bit for dramatic effect, but it didn't really affect the message of the movie a lot. They also made her character seem like she was closer to some of the other reporters and everything, especially if another reporter died in the field. They use that for emotional effect, which I'm sure she was probably still emotional when that stuff happened. It's just she wasn't as close with them as the movie kind of led on. That being said, the stuff that they changed didn't affect the entire movie. And a lot of what the movie showed was stuff that, or at least decent accounts of stuff that she went through. And I really appreciate a movie that does that. The best part of this movie is the two lead performances. First is Rosamund Pike. She is phenomenal in this movie. I'm not going to say she's going to win awards for it. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe she gets nominated. That being said, I'm sure there's a pretty decent field out there from the movies this year, but she put on a very strong performance in this. Rosamund Pike, as anyone with eyes can see, is a very beautiful woman, but they really play down her natural beauty, and like other movies like Monster with Charlize Theron, for example, they kind of make her look a lot rougher and try to make you pay attention to the performance and not just her looks. I'm not saying she's not a good actress, because she is. I mean, just look at Gone Girl, for example. But by playing that down, you're gonna look at her less of as just this beautiful woman, and you're gonna look at her character, and she does a great job in this. They show how her character suffers mentally and physically from covering all these different conflicts and wars, and she does a great job at getting you emotionally involved. Now, the movie does need to do a little more to make you feel more emotional. They do show you some pretty shocking stuff, but I think it would have served a better purpose if they would have shown some more. It should have pushed the envelope a little more, I think, when it comes to what it was showing, if it was really trying to push this message. That being said, it still does a really good job at telling its story, and Rosamund Pike does a great job at playing this character and getting you involved in her adventure, so to speak, of going overseas and covering these things. But you see that her character is very conflicted, because you can tell, I mean, she drinks a lot more. She's her body's starting to fall apart. You can tell she needs to get out of it, but it's almost an addiction to her. in a life full of addictions that she has. Covering these conflicts is probably one of the biggest addictions she has. And you get to see how it affects her over, like I said, about a decade of time. Okay, you know how a lot of critics, especially like me and Brad Jones, for example, talk about how Jamie Dornan is way better than the 50 Shades franchise. Well, he's in this movie and he does a phenomenal job. He plays freelance cameraman Paul Conroy, and my only gripe about his performance isn't the performance itself. It's more that I know this movie is about Marie Colvin's character, but I would have liked some more about Conroy's. I think if they would have added a little bit more about his time in the military and things like that, and how they do show scenes of how the two of them discussing how being in these places affects them and everything, and it works fine. And the movie is long enough. I don't think the movie needed to be really longer, but I just would have liked a little bit more of his character and learning more about him. But Dornan does a great job in this role, and you know, the guy needs more chances other than 50 Shades. I hope that they don't make those spin-off books, whatever they are, from his perspective. I really hope they don't, or if they do, they get some other sucker to do it, because Jamie Dornan is way better in those movies, and it's movies like this that prove it. There's really not much more I have to say about the movie. It's a solid movie about covering wartime and getting the message out there that there's what the governments tell you, and then there's the real story. And it's not just based on, it's not based on our government really covering everything. It's more about Syria in the early 2010s, about them covering up what they were doing to their people. And especially the last, I'd say, half hour or so of this movie is really fantastic. The whole movie is good. It is a little slow, but if you are interested in things like reporting, and especially wartime reporting, it's actually a fascinating watch, and it's also fascinating to see how something like this would affect someone in the field. And again, a lot of this movie, according to Time Magazine's article, gets a lot of the facts right about it. And when it comes to biopics, I really enjoy that. That's going to be all for this edition of Talkin Movies. If you like what you've heard here, please feel free to subscribe to the Real Geno YouTube channel, like this video, and if you've seen this movie and want to comment on it, feel free to leave a comment in the section below. Until next time, I'm your host, the Real Geno, Geno Reynolds. See you later.